negotiated. According to the statement, these discussions have been ongoing even before this time, and what this latest incident has done is to bring urgency to the effort that this secret service is making. Government is making contact in the hope that the captors will see reason not to visit hardship or even harm on these innocent individuals. The Senate has on Thursday screened additional 14 ministerial nominees. Those screened include Senator Tayo Alasho-Adura from Ondo, Mustafa Baba Shihuri Brono, Abubakar Aliyu Yobe, Bashiru Magashi Kano, Timipre Siva Bayelsa, and Ramatu Tijani Kogi State. Others include Richard Adeniya Debayo Ekiti, Zubairu Dada Niger, Chris Ingige Anambra, Mohammed Abdullahi Nasarawa, Sunday Dare Oyo, Musa Bello Adamawa, Sadia Umar Farouk from Zamfara, and Zainab Hamid from Kaduna. The nominees were drilled on their expected contributions to reforming the oil sector, improving security, and other critical areas of economy. In the Senate has now screened 24 nominees in all. Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila has announced names of chairmen and deputies of standing committees of the 9th House of Representatives. With the constitution of the committees, the House is now well positioned to effectively carry out its legislative functions.
Public Accounts. Chairman, Honorable Wale Oke, deputized by Honorable Abdul Kadir Abdullahi. Air Force, Honorable Shehu Koko, to be deputized by Honorable Abbas Adigun. Army, Abdul Razak Namdas, to be deputized by Tajuddin Adefisoye.
A coalition of northern clerics under the Arewa Pastors Non-Denominational Initiative for Peace have called on Christian Association of Nigeria (CAN) leadership to refrain from making sensitive and inflammatory comments which may be misconstrued by some persons and as such fuel division amongst Nigerians. National chairman of the group, Bishop John Abu Richard, said this at a press conference on the state of the nation.
It's not a religion, it's a tribe. As I'm talking to you, I have our northern Borno State coordinator of Arewa Pastors. He's a Reverend Dr. Aliyu Buba. He is a Fulani man and he's the president of Fulani Christian Association of Nigeria. So why trying to now, proscribe a tribe to be Muslim? When there are Christians among Fulani, there are Muslims, So that is why we say we can't keep quiet. We need to sensitize the country and let the country know that.
Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, says it is time for Nigerians in the diaspora to inject their knowledge, expertise and investments into the search for solution to the nation's development challenges. He was speaking at the 2019 Diaspora Day celebration in Abuja.
The Nigerian diaspora, being at the cutting edge of technology and appropriately exposed at the international business community level, are the right connectors to propel this initiative.
As Nigerians in the diaspora, you are our #1 ambassadors. As we move on, let us make sure that that green passport becomes the toast of the world, not just the toast of Africa.
The Federation Accounts Allocation Committee has distributed a total of 762,597 million naira, including VAT and exchange gains, to the 3 tiers of government as revenue allocation accrued for the month of June. The distributable statutory revenue for the month of June is 652,905 49 million naira. This is higher than the over 571 billion received in the month of May by 81 billion naira.
Of collection, 7% to Nigeria Customs, 4% to Federal Inland Revenue Service, and 4% to DPR. And there is also a deduction by way of transfer to excess crude account of 35 billion. There is also refund, 2018 refund to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, giving a net statutory allocation or figure of 595 billion 376 million naira.
And that's the news for now. We'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins on NTA. Wait for the discussion of today with Kisley and Kieran after the break.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious diseases like diarrhea, typhoid, and flu. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. In Nigeria, tens of thousands of children under the age of 5 have died due to diarrhea caused by germs, which could easily have been prevented. These illness-causing germs are everywhere. Dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes, in unclean bathing water. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capsule. For surface cleaning, for first aid, for your laundry, in your bathing water, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
NTA Television College Jos announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803 3144 383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar Announcer.
And if you just tuned in, this is Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for joining us. Now, let's go business. Federal government implores small business owners to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement through improved value addition on locally sourced products. Now, let's join our business desk for details of these and other stories.
Nigerian micro, small and medium enterprises are ready to harness the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement entered into by the Nigerian government through improved value addition on locally sourced products. This was disclosed by key players and business regulatory agencies in Abuja during a business engagement and products fair in Abuja to sensitize small business owners on the gains of entrepreneurship and the need to take advantage of the present administration's effort to open up the business environment within the country.
We are hoping to expose them. We're hoping to expose them to the world of business beyond home business, beyond office business, beyond actually selling to just friends and family.
I have invested time, I have invested resources. I always try to learn new techniques, buy new equipment that will make my work stand out.
If you look at it, we cannot individually have a factory.
bringing up small industry, small businesses, enterprises. By the time you put it all together, we are making it a larger event.
Items on display were varieties of products from textiles to cosmetics and catering services. And the CBN says it is restricting banks from accessing treasury bills to enable the bank lend to the private sector. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, who made this known at the MPC meeting in Abuja, said the restriction is to stimulate growth in the economy.
We all must work together as Nigerians to do everything that is possible to grow this economy. And the central bank, in conjunction with the deposit money banks, who are at the monetary side of policy in this country, must be seen to play this role.
Next is the closing figures of trades on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for that business package. For us, next on the program is Newspaper Review.
All right, and our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Toyabi, is already here in the studio. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the last edition of Good Morning Nigeria for the week.
Thank you. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the Punch newspaper. And for us here in the Federal Capital Territory, we'll take a look at the photographs on the front page of the Punch newspaper. The composite photographs there come with the caption, "Roads, schools and houses flooded as rain pounds Federal Capital Territory." Details of that story can be found on page 13. Bayo, of course, you remember we discussed it yesterday, that you were drenched when you were coming to the office.
Yes.
Like the rest of us. And even after the program, the rains never ceased. So those are the photographs from some of the scenes of the places that were flooded yesterday in the Federal Capital Territory. Now, the lead story for the Punch newspaper says governors devise new methods of spending local government funds. And this is according to Nolge. Union may be right, but councils can contribute to development. That's one governor who has been quoted. And local governments should report states to EFCC and ICPC, says NFIU. Details of that story can be found on page 9. Two earpieces beside the nameplate of the Punch newspaper. Boko Haram resurgence. Ex-general blames infighting among service chiefs. And African varsities sell certificates to unqualified Nigerians. That's according to the NYSC. Above the name flag, fuel subsidy hits 206 billion naira in 2 months. That's page 29. And Southwest troop deployment, an option, not a promise. That's according to Vice President Oshibajo. With two riders, we haven't got orders to deploy soldiers, say military. Fulfill your promise, Olubadan, YCE, that's Yoruba Council of Elders, Afenifere and others, tell the federal government. Boko Haram video on Sharibu and aid workers disturbing, according to the presidency. That's on page 12. And then right at the foot of the front page of the Punch newspaper, that's below the photographs now. It says PDP adopts indirect primaries for Kogi and Bayelsa polls. That's page 23. And herdsmen have made our villages inaccessible. And shot musician arrested for having tattoos dies. And students protest killings of Nigerians in South Africa. Those stories are on pages 4 and 5. Bring El Zakzaki for treatment. Iran tests Nigeria. And reps to probe Obasanjo, Yaradua, and Jonathan power contracts, page 13. Carry on.
All right, now to Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate. Daily Trust newspaper. Malami Tarlin, 6 others appeared today as Senate screens 24. It's on page 3. Don't let Boko Haram kill us. Abducted aid workers cry out. That story can be found on page 4. And then federal government, states, local governments share 762.6 billion naira for the month of June. Now, the lead story on the Daily Trust. While we are negotiating with bandits at Sokoto state government, and then on the foot of the Daily Trust, we have some other stories there. Hajj, 20,469 Nigerian pilgrims now in Saudi Arabia. It's on page 7. Reps tell Buhari to appoint more women. It's on page 13. And man kills father with hoe in Jigawa State. Well, let's bring in Bayo now.
Yes, let's start with the story about humanitarian workers. The presidency has expressed concern about the disturbing video of Nigerian humanitarian workers released showing them in captive by the insurgents. This presidency says it has been given assurance that contact is being made and the captors are being talked to. The statement by Garba Shehu, the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, says besides the aid workers, there are the only Dapchi school girl held on religious grounds, a religious leader, and some other about whom there are engagers. Government is making contact with captors not to visit hardship on them, on these our innocent compatriots. The video that featured the captive humanitarian workers are calling for urgent action so that they will not be killed like others that they named in that video. There has been no confirmation, however, about the state of those persons that have claimed. The efforts of government is in the direction of making their contact with the intermediaries to ensure that they secure the release of those persons. After 4 hours of torrential rain yesterday, many parts of Abuja were inundated with water. This has revealed the challenges of drainage in the federal capital city. Many highway major roads were inundated and became lakes on the highway. When I was in primary school, they used to teach us that a lake is a piece of water surrounded by land. That was what many highways were yesterday. And Punch reports that parts of the airport road, Kubwa Expressway, were all inaccessible. The other area of note is the area in front of that hospital, Garki Hospital there. It was impassable.
You see, Bayo, yes, you made a point that it will likely be because of poor drainage system or blockage of drainages. But I can tell you that there are newly constructed roads in Abuja with very good drainage, and it still happens. You know, when we talk about climate change, or when you have the kind of rain we had yesterday, that the possibility of many places being flooded is there. Yeah, not talking, I think many, in fact, all parts of Abuja yesterday were flooded one way or another. That of Area 8, we talked about it, the hospital there, that one is perennial. Whenever it rains, you know, that occurs there, you know.
The other area of concern was the low-lying areas, waterways that you have structures there. And the paper is indicating that development control of the FCDA had given indication about 120 resident buildings that are in waterway that they have marked for demolition. But the question to ask here is this: where were developmental control when these houses were being built? Houses don't sprout out just like mushrooms. They are built gradually on waterways until people come and live in it. And then when there is trouble like this, you have so many houses flooded. Another area that has been identified is Lokogoma area. You recall last year, we had a sad incident of a man who was driving his children to school in his Jeep, and his children, all of them perished in that same area. The problem is still there, yes.
All right, Bayo, let's take this lead story, by the way, on the front page of the Punch newspaper. As the lead says, governors devise new methods of spending local government funds. If you recall, there was a directive by the NFIU, that's the Financial Intelligence Unit, on how much local governments could spend per day, cash. And there was an need, therefore, to encourage them to do e-transactions. But it looks like there's a roundabout way, you know, to circumvent whatever attempts were being made to ensure that local government funds remained local government funds for them to carry out their functions. And that's what the list story is talking about.
Yes, the national president of the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employers, Ibrahim Khalid, says that state governments now force local government to pay levies to them for fund apportioned for construction activities. And they say that that is the obligations they have placed on the local government's area. Local government are asked to contribute to the running of some projects in state, which are the responsibility of state governments. So they have drawn the attention of the Nigerian Intelligence Financial Unit to these little subtle methods for which it's being used to undermine that direction that you cannot withdraw more than 500,000 from cash from local government account. And also, the money must reach the local government account before there will be any other transactions.
You know, until the local governments are allowed to play their own role as a tier of government, these things will not stop. And the governors will, even if the financial authority does anything in respect to what has developed at the moment, there must be a way of devising other means of getting that fund. You know, but because of the inability of the key players in our political system, the local government is like a non-existential, you know, in terms of performing their responsibility. So it will persist unless something drastic is done to ensure that that tier of government is recognized and given their status, you know, in the entire political system of the country.
Yeah, NFIU is drawing the attention of EFCC and ICPC to this latest method so that at least they can get it in the board. The other one is that so far, 24 done, 19 to go. We're talking about the ministerial nominees. The Senate has screened the second set yesterday of 14 ministers. 24 screened, 19 is left. 8 of them will be screened today. The Senate, in fact, had to suspend its own rules guiding the sitting so that they can continue at 10 o'clock today and on Monday to continue the screening of the other. But there has been concern expressed about this tradition of take a bow and go. Yesterday, on the first day of screening, there were 10 that were screened. 6 took a bow and went. Yesterday, there were 14 screened. 10 took a bow and went. And meanwhile, the Senate has taken the pains to explain that when people take a bow and went, it's part of their tradition. But nevertheless, it does not expulcate them from the fact that they will still be screened by going through their CV and their particulars before they are eventually cleared. So therefore, taking a bow is not a clearance. But however, members of the public are complaining that they have been denied the scrutiny of the persons who hold ministerial position by the Senate, subjecting them to critical questions so that the members of the public can be convinced that they are fit for the positions for which they are being screened.
Yes, and that's what leadership captured this morning as a lead story, leadership newspaper. It came this way, ministerial screening. Controversy trails Senate bow and go privilege. There will 2 riders, 16 out of 24 nominees get special treatment. Upper chamber engaging in endorsement, not confirmation, says a minority leader. So that's how leadership captured it. But for me, I think I'll take the side of the public, you know, because the bow and go, yes, it's a privilege, but when it comes to the issue of governance and administration, somebody has to show his prowess. Somebody has to show that he's determined. Even when somebody has been a member of National Assembly, he has never been a minister anyway. So are you now telling him to bow and go because he was once a member of National Assembly? Has he ever been a minister before? Now, how do you determine his capacity and capability as a nominee to be a good minister just because the person has been in National Assembly? So it is questionable.
The other concern too that was also drawn was out of the 469 members of the House of the National Assembly, only 19, that is about 4.1%, are women. This was attention was drawn to this on the floor of the House of Representatives. Consequently, a member of the House of Representatives has drawn the attention of the presidency that when further appointments are to be made for the ministries, departments, and agencies, top priority should be given to women. And if you look at the records, in 2011, we had 16 women ministers. In 2015, we had 6 out of 35. In the current 19, we have 7 that are among the 43 that have been screened. And they are arguing that this is far, far below the 1985 35% affirmative action of Beijing Conference.
Well, back to take a bow and go, or bow and go as it is being called. You know, well, Kiriat has made a point. It's a tradition of the Senate in the process of confirmation hearings to say, look, whoever appears before us will be apt not to grill such, such a nominee. Well, if the basis of the tradition for ministerial screening is the fact that you have been a member, say, of the Senate or of the House of Representatives, that is something that is open to a public debate. Your parliamentary skills and experience aren't necessarily executive skills and experience.
Exactly.
And you are going into a different kind of assignment.
Exactly.
So what is it that you are going to meet or you are likely to meet, and how might you approach the challenges that you will face in your executive position?
And you are screening ex-ministers who have already been in the office.
That's right.
You are not screening them. And those who have not been in the office,
you say take a bow
and go.
Take a bow and go.
How does that reflect? Anyway.
And then if you recall, I tended to have assumed, by way of benefit of the doubt, that having received the list of ministerial nominees on Tuesday, and the screening was due to start on Wednesday, that, look, how were the nominees contacted to get their resumes, or that's to say their CVs ready, print the number of copies for the members of the Senate and then to the Secretariat, that suddenly they would not be available. Here we are now hearing that, it doesn't mean that we are, of course, the Senate will have to, again, go over its proceedings of the nomination to say these persons have been cleared. But if you say you have to go over their CV again, when are you then going to invite them to defend issues or speak to matters that may arise from their CVs? Exactly. Shouldn't you have had their resumes, studied those resumes, made your points, and in the plenary, while you are screening them, you raise pertinent questions? Are you going to have a backroom reconsideration of the nominees? It's supposed to be in the public domain. Yeah. And the U.S. that we often refer to, is there any presidential nominee for an appointment who is told to take a bow and go?
The bow and go is, in fact, having a boomerang effect, in the sense that the Senate, in trying to show that it's gender sensitive, has accorded the female nominees so far bow and go courtesy. However, the development from that is that senators are now, every state has 3 senators. So 3 senators from each state is trying to now and arguing and advancing for their own candidate to also bow and go.
Yeah. So let the impression not be created that this is a perfunctory function. So say, look, let's just take them to the crucible.
All right, gentlemen, we are rounding off this segment, but please, not without the editorial for today, because it's very important. It's the agenda for Justice Tanko Mohammed. Just briefly, Bayo, we are running out of time.
Okay. I was going to tell you about the snake that dropped at the Ondo State House of Assembly. The ceiling were falling off, and the members said they cannot sit in plenary until the place is refurbished. Then they're talking about the editorial. The editorial is from The Sun, and it has happened on the appointment of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and the newspaper is setting agenda for the 18th Chief Justice of Nigeria. And the target is at threefold. First, it says that the inability of the 3 arms to work together is also denying Nigerians of dividend of democracy. Therefore, the new Justice of Nigeria, Chief Justice of Nigeria, should be accommodative, work with all 3 arms of government, and also rid the judiciary of the suspicion of bad eggs who are alleged to be corrupt.
All right, Bayo Toyebe, we'd like to thank you for being around. We hope you enjoy your weekend, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the NTA. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our conversation segment.
Protocol and event management are special skills which can only be acquired through training and experience. NTA TV College Jos is organizing a special 2-week course on protocol, event management, and public relations to upgrade the capacities of practitioners. The course will equip participants with modern skills, techniques, and international best practices in protocol, event management, and public relations. Also, a special 4-week intensive course on non-linear editing techniques will run concurrently. The course will expose participants to modern techniques and technologies of non-linear editing. Take advantage of this course to hone your professional skills for premium packaging of your programs and reports. The venue for both courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA Television College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos, Plateau State. Date 19th to 30th August 2019 for the course on protocol, event management, and public relations. 19th August to 13th September 2019 for basic non-linear editing techniques. Course fee 100,000 naira only per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more information, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Son, being good at something requires strength. It requires pushing yourself. It requires putting in more. That's why the new improved Bornvita is packed with vitality and a great taste.
Now, to set the tone for our discussion this morning, which is on public infrastructure and maintenance culture, here is a background report as put together by correspondent Kunle Adeyeye.
Public infrastructure is dedicated to the public, which is at the expense of government, but the long-time functionality of these infrastructure to an extent depends on the attitude of citizens, and without a strong maintenance culture, efforts at infrastructural development will amount to nothing. The attitude of Nigerians towards public utilities at different times has been called to question. In some public institutions, basic facilities provided are not treasured as they are continually messed up. Though the maintenance of public infrastructure is a shared responsibility of government and direct beneficiaries, which are the people, the indifference of the masses to safeguard and maintain public property sometimes lead to decay and destruction. And over time, the inability of the authorities to subject those found culpable to face the law has not helped matters. On the part of government, it has also been observed that it has not been fully active in maintaining some of the public infrastructure as a result of inadequate funds and sundry reasons. There has been advocacy from different quarters for effective legislation that will instill maintenance culture in the country. Is it possible to change Nigerians' attitude towards public infrastructure? And what is the role of facility managers in promoting the durability of public infrastructure? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will give their perspectives shortly.
And now joining us in the studio for this discussion on infrastructure and maintenance culture is Garba Abari, the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, NOA. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kiran. Good morning, Nigeria.
And Collins Osayamen. I hope I got that correctly.
Osayamen.
Yeah, he's a fellow of International Facility Management Association, Nigerian chapter. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. We also have with us here Bola Bakare, Public Affairs Analyst. Bola, delighted to have you with us on the Good Morning Nigeria again.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin the conversation first from a general perspective. I mean, you listen to the background report, and the evidence is always around us. New facilities, new infrastructure, commissioned with a great deal of fanfare. A few months later, go there, and then you begin to see signs of decay. And a few years after, of course, everybody said, look, let's have a new one. Dr. Gaba Bari, Director General, National Orientation Agency. Just what is wrong with us in terms of maintenance culture?
Everything. Everything as a country is wrong with us in terms of maintenance culture. It has not always been the case, but especially over the last few decades, things have really taken a turn for the worse. And it is not only in the area of maintenance culture that things have taken a turn for the worse, in almost every aspect of our national life. We have a human capital which is not fully developed and therefore lacks the appreciation of certain civic responsibilities which would have made citizens aware that what is public is a collective ownership that needs to be protected, that needs to be seen as everybody else's property, and not things that are to be vandalized, and that is why in the days of old, when government cited projects in communities, a lot of responsibilities was being bestowed on such communities to see how much protection should go to such public utilities. But these days, because of the general collapse that we see in values, every small anger you find in the society, even among the youth, or school children demonstration, the first target is public property. The first target is public property. And this tells you that there are a lot of things that have gone wrong with the kind of values that are being inculcated in young people coming up to become adults. Secondly, there is massive ignorance amongst the populace simply because we have refused to develop our human capital. Thirdly, there is huge vacuum in civic culture and civic responsibility. Therefore, people are not even aware that what is public is a collective ownership. And then all of this cumulatively put together actually tends to make government property like nobody else's property. The National Orientation Agency actually realized this in a very long time. And sometimes in September last year, we organized a national campaign, sensitization and advocacy on the protection of government property, and we itemized stakeholders. Those who should protect, those who provide the services. We brought Federal Ministry of Works, we brought the Public Buildings Department, we brought, in the case of Abuja, we brought the FCDA. We also tried to bring artisans who are the principal patrons when you remove the cover of the manholes. You take to them the sell. We went to Apua and brought these people that are selling spare parts, to see a lot of public property wires, electric cables and the rest of them, railings, bridge railings, that are all public property that had been taken off by people. I don't want to call them criminals, but people who felt, I don't want to call them criminals, but people who feel that this is their own share, of the public or national cake. So this is the point. So the problems are actually big. The responsibility is not only for government, but for all of us as a family, as a government. The need to have a look at our education system for proper inculcation of civil values and civic culture. And of course, also for leadership to be very exemplary, because many of the things that we see being vandalized by people are informed with the wrong notion that what we cannot access lawfully, we can access through unlawful means.
All right. Thank you for that opening remarks. And of course, you've made the points very clear. And this problem is so pervasive as it affects hospitals, stadiums, schools, theaters, and what have you. And these are infrastructure that are directly being used by the individuals who turn around to vandalize them. You know, even boreholes in the villages and small communities, electric cables, you know, in the villages. The same villagers who make use of the power supplied by these cables still vandalize them. And that's why I want to bring in Collins to give us his own perspective as to what our attitude to life has become.
All right. Thank you very much for having me this morning. As a facility manager, I have a little bit different perspective from what we all in Nigeria say maintenance culture. You know, I was at an event 2 years ago where the former Minister of Works, Housing and Power came, and the title of that event was Maintenance Culture. And his first remark was, Nigerians do not lack maintenance culture. What we lack is maintenance economy. And I'm going to highlight on those things very quickly. I was very excited because that was one of the things that truly bothered me as a professional. Everywhere I go, I hear people say, oh, it's because we lack maintenance culture, that's why we are not able to maintain our facilities. And it's far from the reality, because beyond the fact that we do not have the culture of maintaining our facilities, there are more terrible or more in-depth reasons why we don't truly maintain our facilities. First of all, I think it's pure ignorance from every person that is involved with managing our facilities. Lack of quality education and training of the professionals managing our facilities. 2, the people using our facilities, they don't have what it takes to be able to use these facilities properly to their own benefits. So it's beyond one of the things I always talk about is when you say culture and maintenance, culture is the way we do things here. That's the meaning of culture. Mm-hmm. And maintenance is being able to keep things going the way they've been designed to operate. So when you use these two terms together, it baffles me. So you are saying we have a culture of not maintaining our facilities. So let's keep on doing it that way. So let's not talk about changing the way we see things being done. You know, right from when I was in school, I've been hearing this phrase, maintenance culture, lack of maintenance culture. And this is more than 30 years ago, and we are still talking about it till date. And it has not changed anything that we have been seeing around our infrastructure. So what I'm saying here today is Nigerians should understand that it does not take rocket science to manage our facilities, but you need a lot of education and training to be able to manage facilities properly. For instance, I give you an example. The new airport that was recently commissioned by the federal government. I traveled 3 weeks ago out of this country. We used the hangars to get out of the lounge, go into the plane. But on Monday when I was returning back, they told us the fingers are not working, the stretcher that goes into the door of the plane to get us out. We had to use ladder to come down from the airplane. So has that anything to do with the fact that Nigerians don't have culture of maintenance? No, because some people who are supposed to be responsive to that making sure that particular equipment work was found wanting, and that system broke. So we believe that ignorance, lack of understanding of how to manage our facility is the biggest challenge we have. There is so much that we need to put in place to be able to manage our facility in terms of training people to understand how to manage our facilities. For instance, people think facility management is just a thing. They don't see it as a profession that you need to study and understand how it works. If you want to be a doctor, you go to university and you do housemanship, you are qualified to become a doctor. But anybody can be called upon to manage our facilities. We don't give it any attention whatsoever. And how is that going to help us manage our facilities?
Okay, Mr. Collins, Sayame, we will return to you, but just clarify one point before we bring in Bola Bakare.
Yeah.
You tried to disagree with the phrase lack of maintenance culture, and instead you pitched with what you said Fashola gave as our challenge being maintenance economics.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah, there is so much to be made, or so much funds to be made out of maintaining our facilities if we are able to truly harness this industry properly. He gave an example. He said, when you go to Europe or America, any other developed world, you see cars passing the road. He said, out of every 10 cars that you see on the road, at least 3, 4, or 5 are service vehicles. But when you come to Nigeria, you see 10 cars pass the road. All 10 cars are luxury vehicles because that industry does not exist. Those service cars are either electrical companies, plumbing companies, roofing companies, and the like. And you see them with their equipment stuck at the back of the truck. But here we don't have anything like that because we don't care about how our facilities look like. And these people are able to generate a lot of resources in the economy because they are being very active. If we are able to harness this industry properly, we will employ a lot of people that are jobless today. We have a lot of engineers. They don't have anything doing. But if they are encouraged to start these small-scale industries by setting up these service companies to do some things or manage some aspect of our facilities, these people will be gainfully employed and they will add to the economy. And the environment will be better for it.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. Of course, Kirian, I'm sure that we will have the opportunity, if not on this program, maybe subsequently, to drill into maintenance economics. I think that there are issues of Naira and Kobo involved, budgeting and so on and so forth, and then how the money is spent, once it is appropriated and who accounts for it. But Bola Bakare, what is your general take on, we call it lack of maintenance culture, and we'll stick with that in the meantime, that the evidence is so rich, large in our country?
Thank you, my brothers. As we go on a regular basis, we try as much as possible to make the average Nigerian understand where we're coming from and where we're going. This morning, there are 2 words that we're dealing with: maintenance and infrastructure. With infrastructure, I will give 2 definitions for it. There is physical infrastructure, there is human infrastructure. To start with, it is the human infrastructure that affects the physical infrastructure. If you don't take care of the human infrastructure, your physical infrastructure is going to be in shambles. And what do I call human infrastructure? Education, health, nutrition. Little wonder one of my brothers some time ago was saying stomach infrastructure, the average Nigerian was laughing at him. It was a straight-laced answer, a straight-laced language that has in-depth meaning. If you don't take care of the human factor all other infrastructure will go to waste. That is why, if we look at where we are coming from, we need to look at where we are coming from before we determine where we are going. And that is why the human factor comes in. It's very easy. You can come up with a contract. We're going to put up this road today. We're going to put up this bridge today. We are going to build that house tomorrow. How do you go about that? It is the human factor that affects it. Take, for instance, we did a survey over the years because I believe what is wrong with us is systemic failure. Take, for instance, a case of NEPA during the days of ECN. When Nigeria was just 55 to 60 million, all we had was Kanji Dam. And Kanji Dam was giving us all the power we needed. Were there not people in Nigeria that knows that our population will go from 55 to 60 to 70 to 80 to 100 to 120? There are people there. Are there no professionals that knows that Kanji cannot handle 60, 70 million people? You see, it now boils down to what we do and the results we get. In these days, there is what we call procurements. That is how you go about developing infrastructure. Now, when you're going into procurements, in most cases, if not in all cases, the government is in charge of that. The government is always the client. But what happens to what you put together? What happens to what you put up? The government says, okay, this is an advert, I want to get this road done. You now bring in contractors. At the end of the day, you, the client, will now give the job to somebody who is going to give you the best returns, not necessarily the best professionalism. That is why I am saying the human infrastructure affects our physical infrastructure. We need to take care of that first, else we are in problem. Okay, let's move on to the next level. Now you have the infrastructure in place. Be it a road, be it a house, be it a building, be it whatever. Now the human factor comes to bear again. Take, for instance, let's talk in terms of civil engineering and road construction. Put up a road today, and then you have what we call asphaltic overlay, 1, 2. The black one, so the average Nigerian who doesn't know the asphaltic overlay comes in 2s or 3s. Now, if the road is going down, the road will tell you itself. It will start cracking. What you do to it is, they call it crack sealing. If you don't seal the cracks, the asphalt will come off. The wearing course will come off. If you don't do anything, the binder course will start cracking, it will come off. At the end of the day, it becomes what we call, in general terms, a pothole. Then you start seeing the base. You see, the human factor is what I am saying again. Somebody somewhere is busy looking at it, cracking, moving off, failing, and at the end of the day, it becomes a huge problem. It is not that we do not know what we are doing, but the human factor is very, 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 very key here. That brings to the fore the language that our former minister used, which I am part of: maintenance economics. You see, culture in itself is an appropriate language. What you do is your culture. You can improve on it. You can either be decadent or you can be fantastic. But if you bring in the economics into it, it is an added value to that word maintenance culture. We can add it together, maintenance culture economics. Because if you don't look at it from the economic angle, we are in problem. You built a road today for 10 naira. You do not fix it, and it goes bad. The integrity fails. You will end up spending more money to fix it, or maybe probably you scarify the whole stretch of road like we are doing at our airport road here in Abuja. A whole section is being scarified for a new asphaltic overlay. What were they doing when the road was failing? In engineering, basically, if you are given a contract to do a road, you have to give guarantee of some years that this road I have made today, in another 5, 6 years, it won't fail. If it does fail, you call him back. Those are factors of culture and maintenance economics, which I guess we should be to the fore. And I guess As we go on today, we'll be able to trash all the parameters that are involved.
Yes, all these new emerging phrases, human infrastructure, and of course, Collins talked about maintenance economics. That's the business aspect of the maintenance culture, if you ask me. Because we are talking about maintaining, sustaining an infrastructure, making it to last. For instance, go to a national stadium here in Abuja. You will see things for yourself. That this stadium may have been ignored for a while, and of course you have a dilapidation and what have you. But there's another aspect. I'd like the DG of NOA to come in. Are we really having challenges of technology? Because we depend virtually up to 95% of our infrastructure in this country, by foreign firms, right, with their own technology, because we have not been able to grow our own indigenous technology. So what are you now maintaining? If you want to maintain an infrastructure that was constructed by a foreign firm, perhaps you need some expertise to be able to do that. And if I may make reference to what Bola said earlier, that education and all of that should come in. Don't forget that our own grandfathers maintained their own infrastructure in their villages without even getting education because of knowledge of the importance of this infrastructure. So are we having challenge of technology?
I still maintain that largely there is the matter of attitude. Largely. And I want to emphasize and come down to as low as I can get that yes, road maintenance, airport maintenance, these are all mega projects, mega infrastructure that we're talking about. Go to any average government office. Go to any average government office and see the kind of infrastructure that you find there. A government vehicle that has been parked for a number of years simply because what you require is not more than 5,000, 10,000 naira to fix. This is attitude. An air conditioning system is not functioning simply because you require 4,000, 3,000 naira to put in the gas in there. This is attitude. A chair that an officer sits on, you find it is supposed to be 4-layered, it's only 3, and no one is paying attention to that. That is attitude. But these are not the kind of things that we do when it comes to our own personal property. That's not what we do. Certainly, I cannot keep my car down for 1 year, 2 years, simply because I don't have 20,000 naira to either buy tires or to fix the carburetor or to do whatever little thing that will keep it going. This attitude of public property is not anybody's property. It's something that we need to change. And that is why I am talking about education. The education in the broader sense. Not professional education, but education in the broader sense. The education of an engineer, not an engineer as a careerist, not a medical doctor as a careerist, but somebody with an all-round education, versatile enough to appreciate what value education actually inculcates into him or her. Now, what I am saying therefore is, and I think Bola is talking about that exactly, the human capital development. Not necessarily taking people to go to school and they give them certificates. But the human capital development actually encompasses the entire gamut of all that will make the individual a rounded person. So, from whatever perspective you look at it, I still insist, and I am with you, the team of the NTA, that we have a problem of maintenance culture in this country. The fundamental basis of which is based on our attitude to based on the kind of leadership. And the leadership, not necessarily the president, the senate, no. Leadership at every individual in which at every level in which individuals find themselves. Whether a headmaster in the school, whether the manager in the NTA station, whether the director general in the public office, whether the head of public works, everybody has to, and of course, don't forget, perhaps in your, I was trying to see in your background check, whether you have also added the issue of the amount of money that comes out from the public funds year in, year out for maintenance, which actually does not go into that.
Well, you know, Dr. Abari, DG NOAA, you've raised a number of very important points, Kira and the other guests. One, very quickly, before I take us back into time. You said, in terms of attitude, an air conditioning system isn't working, or a chair that normally should have 4 legs has 3, and the officer is sitting on it, the chair is not maintained, the AC is not maintained. If you go to the Federal Secretariat, I don't know whether they have running water around the clock. But these same officers have the funds, you know, to undertake travels, to undertake tours.
This is a question.
You can say that the different subheads of expenditure, but the infrastructure that you require to function effectively, you don't keep them in order, but the trip that you need to make so that you earn your DTA, that is a must-have. But let's ask ourselves this question. For our viewers who are in Lagos, and Bola is familiar with this, and I guess the other guests as well, there is a bus stop, I hope it's still there, PWD, it's on the Agege Motor Road. PWD stands for Public Works Department. Growing up, we're all sufficiently old enough here, we knew how public infrastructure were maintained throughout the country. Even in the villages, you had the road menders, so-called road menders. Yes. The roads, the untarred roads, you know.
We call them earth roads.
Earth roads, yes. Unpaved, whatever, but they were maintained. And if you went to any public building, you knew you were in the public building. Where did we start to get it wrong?
Corruption. Corruption.
What are the dimensions of the corruption?
All the things that you are saying now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All the things that we have mentioned. I have told you about how budgetary allocations are made for maintenance of public buildings, or for maintenance of air conditioners, or for maintenance of cars, or for maintenance of generators. Where is the money going? Or where is the money going?
Let me add to what you just said. You see, we referred to the PWD. We remembered how they were able to efficiently manage our facilities and infrastructures. I will refer to that era as the analog period. But right now we are in the digital age where everything is computerized, like you said. And you cannot use an analog knowledge to manage a digital world. So the people that are supposed to manage our infrastructure are not educated to understand how to manage our infrastructure with the current technologies that exist. And because there is a lack of understanding and knowledge of the place of facility management in infrastructure maintenance, we miss it. Because if you travel elsewhere where facility management is truly practiced, that's why you see buildings in Europe and America, 200 years, they look like what has been just commissioned 2 months or 3 months ago. Because they understand that every component in a building at some point will get bad and they need to be replaced. And they prepare for it. Nobody is in charge of our infrastructure in Nigeria because we don't consider it as necessary. You just get a building, you use it the way you want, and think the building will take care of itself. Even humans, we have to help ourselves to stay alive. Talk less an object that does not talk or do anything. So we don't make efforts to get people qualified. Not just anybody, just go. Because if a doctor knows that if I don't do these necessary things to this human being, he's going to die. So he will take every pain he has to make sure he gives him what he wants. But because somebody there who is not even qualified in the first place to manage facilities He's not been trained. He does not have an idea of what he's doing there. He's just called afterthought, call over, just come and take care of this facility. And he's there. He makes provision for budget allocation for the management, and he diverts it for other uses, and he does not. Because like he said, an air conditioner, for instance, the manufacturer knows this air conditioner will last for at least 15 years, but you have to do some certain things at some certain periods. And if you don't do those things, it's not going to last 5 years. It's all going to break down. And that is what we do. There's what we call scheduled maintenance and corrective maintenance. So if you don't take care of your scheduled maintenance as at when due, you are going to short-live the life of that particular equipment. And when we say we lack maintenance culture, that's where I also think I differ a bit. Because we don't just throw away the generator or whatever when it gets bad. We are also used to corrective maintenance. We do correction until it fails. For instance, let me give you a typical example. Maybe that will give us an idea of when we talk about maintenance. In Nigeria, when you buy a generator, you run it until one day when you get to that place when you want to turn on the generator, it refuses to come on. That is when you realize that it needs attention. But that generator needed attention long before that time, just like your car. At every 5,000 kilometers, depending on what the manufacturer has specified, the oil you use, you go and service it. You change the oil, you change the filters, you change those basic stuff that needs to be replaced. After you do that, you run it again for another 5,000 hours. However, in maintaining our infrastructure, when we have generators, we run it, and the manufacturer say after 200 hours, change the oil, change the filter, change the belt, or all the areas that needs to be changed. We don't do those things because nobody is there to look at the manuals to know how to manage this generator. We run it until one day we go there, we want to turn it on, it's not coming on. You say, oh, it has failed. I need somebody to come and fix it. Then the person comes and tells you, oh, the crankshaft has broken because you forgot to replace the oil, just the simple oil that would have cost you less than 5,000 naira. It's going to cost you maybe 100,000 that you didn't prepare for. Then you start running up and down. So after some time, you just leave the generator and say, oh, we don't need generator again. Let's start using NEPA the way it comes. Anytime we have power, we go ahead and do it. So these are our basic, but people are trained.
See, sorry, I'm not pausing, so you made very valid points, from your view. You see, I'm just thinking that even this issue of non-maintenance, has even caught up with some landlords. When they build, have a structure where they have tenants, they don't go maintaining those structures. You need to go and beg a landlord to go and maintain his own property. But because he is not living there and you are paying for that, if you want to live under a leaked ceiling, it's your business. So you find people changing doors in their houses, which is not their own personal houses. Yeah. It happens. But let me tell you where I came from, where I brought in the issue of technology in this. Because irrespective of how we look at this, every other infrastructure is technology driven.
Absolutely.
And for you to maintain those infrastructure, you have to be enlightened or have knowledge of the technology that you use to keep them afloat. Yes. For instance, in PRODA is one of the oldest federal government agencies in science and technology. Actually, in the early 70s, they brought about the first prototype car in Nigeria. If you go to PRODA presently, you will discover that they're still using equipment they brought in there 40 years ago. And because the staff of the agency were almost running out of, in fact, you don't have anything to work with. It's as if you come to work and you'll be looking on it. So they had to be forced to maintain those facilities. You'll be amazed to see the kind of maintenance culture that goes on in PRODA for them to be able to sustain those equipment bought 40 years ago that have not been able to be replaced. Right, so it's a matter of attitude, as he pointed out, and I want to bring in Bola again here with respect to the human infrastructure you mentioned earlier on. You could expatiate on that for us to see how it has a link with the poor attitude of maintenance in this system.
Thank you once again, my brother. I'll reiterate this. The element of the human infrastructure is highly pertinent. Doctor here used another word for it, the human attitude. I will use another word for it, the human will to get things done. It is, to me, it is secondary that you have a PhD in whatever. If the will to get something done or anything done is not there, the certificate, to me, for all I care, is irrelevant. And that is the vein of what we are talking about here in Nigeria. The doctor used the language, he said, corruption first, corruption second, corruption third. Corruption is not a physical thing, it's a human thing. It is the human factor that brings in the corruption. It is the human factor that lacks the willpower to get anything done. So that is where we have to make sure that we rejig ourselves. And how do we do that? Thank God we've had 20 years of democracy. And within those 20 years, I will use one language, we've been fumbling, we've been wobbling, but at the same time, we've been moving forward. Because I believe our democracy is work in progress. And then we are improving as we go. And we are learning as we go. The thing is, now that we've brought in the human factor that determines all other factors, how do we sustain the human with the funding, with the attitude, and the will to get us that maintenance, culture, and economics? We need to sit back and look at ourselves. That brings in the factor of governance. If there is no governance, you cannot do anything. And for God's sake, in a democracy, if there is no politics, there is no governance. Little wonder, politics and governance, they go pari passu. Now we look at it from this angle that here is a leadership, here is a followership. Is the followership misleading the leadership? Is the leadership shortchanging the followership? But let us look at it holistically and think positive in what we do. I would like to run inferences because in life we run inferences. Let's say we've been coming for 60 years thereabout. Honestly, we started out good. We went down a little bit, and then I guess as we speak, we are on the threshold of moving back on an even keel. From our own angle, which Kingsley knows, in our own network, truth matters. And in most cases, truth doesn't have a side. Today it might be on your side, tomorrow it might be on my side. Let us look at what we have on ground, because whatever we say here, our primary factor is Nigeria per se. How does what we are saying here affect us as a person? How does the government we have in place? There is nothing we are going to say without factoring in the government we have on hand. What have they done to us? How do we advise them? Because we are not ministers. All we can do is to come on here, lay our views across, and then by God's grace, there are people out there who are listening that can tap into it and then improve on it, because nobody has a prerogative of intellect. So, okay.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, there are a number of points on the table, and curious as well. Just by way of example again, so that Nigerians perhaps can have a better appreciation of this. We saw what happened during the administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo, when he came up with the monetization policy, coupled with the sale of federal government houses. Here in Abuja and of course in other locations, including Lagos in particular, that the cost of maintaining those public buildings, as they were at that time, was enormous on the public purse. So owner occupier had the right of first refusal. And thereafter, of course, we shed off a number of houses that the federal government used to maintain. It was heavy on the budget year in, year out. But Dr. Barrett, something that you have said, which I would like you to further pursue, in terms of also what College Jos indicated. Look, scheduled maintenance, corrective maintenance, we all undertake that in our private lives. But how do we bring this back into the public sphere? Because it was always there with us in the past, before corruption set in and then ate up virtually the right aptitudes. So that, and then educate Nigerians on the hazards, if you like, or the dangers of what we have already described as displaced aggression. People are protesting, you want to destroy government property, or the sense of entitlement. You know, you steal cables, you steal all kinds of aluminum railings and so on and so forth. How do we bring this attitude that we have in our private lives with regard to our scheduled maintenance into the public sphere where we are working and where all of us are beneficiaries from the availability of the particular infrastructure?
Thank you very much. It still comes down again to the issue of education, and especially awareness about civic responsibility. Civic responsibility is key, which unfortunately is lacking in all of our public spaces, in most of our educational system now. In fact, it's not only lacking, it's so completely there. So one is to first and foremost begin a massive national awareness campaign to make sure people appreciate the fact that there is actually something that is called a collective ownership which benefits each and everybody when it is properly maintained. Be it a village borehole, be it a bridge railing, be it a manhole. You didn't mention the floods that we saw in Abuja yesterday. It was mainly because most of the drains, the covers for the drains had been removed, and all manner of debris had been put into the drains, and this is actually impacted, and it has now impacted everybody. So that's one. Two, there must be probity in the way and manner in which public resources are applied. Because when we say there is scheduled maintenance, there are budgetary allocations for scheduled maintenance. So when scheduled maintenance are not undertaken, people who should be responsible for this must be held to account. Yes. People who are responsible for this must be held to account. And where there are infractions, appropriate sanctions be applied. No, but like in everything in our public sphere, things have now gone to a point where infractions, no matter how serious in the public space, are just allowed to go unsanctioned. As if we are operating in a country that has no laws. Of course there are laws, but laws are of no effect when you cannot apply them where they are needed to be applied. Now, scheduled maintenance, what do you call the other maintenance? Corrective maintenance. There are also usually budgetary allocations for this. But take our budgetary cycle every year in, year out. Every ministry buys new computers. Yeah. Every year. Computers, toners, scanners, television sets. Year in, year out. Nigeria. you begin to wonder. I have a personal laptop that I have used for nearly 5 years now. But year in, year out, I still find my procurement office department coming in with lists of new computers. What happens to the computers? So, my brother, this country actually is a very big mess when it comes to application and the management of public resources.
And let me stay with you, Dr. Barry. You mentioned something very pertinent here, and it's a poor value inculcation, passing from one generation to another. If you can recall, in 1985 or thereabout, when we had the current president as a military head of state, that we had war against indiscipline. Because what we're talking about is also part of Nigerians not being disciplined, right? And today we queue up at bus stops, in banks, and other public places. That was how queue came into our lexicon in this country in the 80s, during why. Right, so people are now queuing up. Then, we were young growing up, we never knew even the spelling of queue. Then, what we know is the other queue, queue d'etat. But this time around, we now discover that. So what am I trying to say is that aspect has been passed on from generation to generation. Till date, we're still queuing up. And it came from. So in terms of sensitization, which you rightly mentioned, what do you intend to do? Because you are handling a portfolio that has a lot to do with sensitizing Nigerians to begin to think. It was changing their attitude, which you have been hammering on for a while now.
You are very, very correct. In fact, the National Orientation Agency, to me, is perhaps the most important agency of government in terms of what if all its mandate, are to be actualized. It has its own realities within which it operates, and unfortunately, and it's not part of the discussion for the public domain.
Sorry, we can't hear now. There's not. Can you?
Oga Kasali electrician who will look for with this. Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, what you mean talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, we are right back. We just experienced some little technical hitch, but we're glad that we are back again on air. And before that happened, Dr. Barry was talking to us on the issue of inculcating the right values on Nigerians, especially the younger generation who will now become the future leaders, as you say. So let's return to Dr. Barry.
Yes, as I was saying, actually, I said this inculcation of values could take place at three levels. At the level of the family, which is the foundational level for the character formation and the molding of the child, the discipline of the child. And in the days of all that you are making reference to, the discipline and the moral rectitude of the child was as much that of the family as it was of the entire society or community. Then the school system. The school system actually had values that were being inculcated. Today, the education system actually leaves much to be desired in terms of the kind of morality that you see, the kind of discipline that we see, that we had been used to in the past. Incidences are being reported daily of how even teachers to whom, in whose care children have been handed, can no longer discipline a child when the child goes Frankish. You understand what I'm saying? Now, all these kind of things actually cumulatively now lead us to the production of a crop of young men and women with no history of where we are coming from, and therefore do not even understand most of the responsibility that should come onto them as citizens.
All right, Dr. Barry, thank you very much. And of course, it's a very interesting conversation that we're having this morning, and we have a torrent of tweets that have come in from our viewers. Kirian, let's go through the tweets now, and then continue with our guests. Law Alpha C has this tweet. Nigeria cannot be said to be infrastructural deficit, but for the fact that our maintenance culture is zero, and little or nothing was done by previous administrations to address it.
All right, now from Dele Jack Solomon, inadequate fund provision, a lack of efficient maintenance department, and poor quality manpower required to embark on repairs of public infrastructure in Nigeria have contributed to the decay of assets, social overheads, and infrastructure. A need for maintenance should be cultivated.
Now, Nsima, splendid. We have one of the worst maintenance cultures in this part of the world. Now, once it is commissioned, that is the end. Citizens see public infrastructure as government responsibility alone. The National Orientation Agency should carry out adequate sensitization on this.
And from Mike Anyako, our maintenance culture, to say the least, is very poor. I even say zero. But that's why pipe-borne water we used to have disappeared in many states. Nigeria always is moribund. Our refineries in comatose. Still, we talk of unemployment, security, etc. Right? Strong leadership will definitely change this story because many of the fundamental issues militating against these infrastructure border on corruption.
All right, this is from Titus Mondenok. Maintenance culture in this country is virtually zero because our mentality towards maintaining infrastructural facilities lacks sincerity and oftentimes characterized by corruption with inefficient supervisory models and oversight to checkmate inadequacies and performance.
And from Usman Banikantu, since inception, Nigerians lacked the orientation to assume ownership and imbibe maintenance culture and sustainability of public infrastructure. So until and unless public infrastructure is seen as community assets, then people can see and value public infrastructure.
Now, Festus Akimboyewa tweets, the poor state of our transport, energy, waste management, water, schools, hospitals, and other infrastructure makes it obvious that we lack maintenance culture. Governments at all levels must work with the private sector to inspect our existing infrastructure and maintain them.
All right, from Sani Michael Omakoji. While we lament and complain of deficit infrastructure, it is also disheartening that our maintenance culture is poor. The road that the lifespan is meant to be 15 years, we will use it for 30 years plus in this country without maintenance. And that's why we have bad roads all around.
Now, Kathy Holmes. In this country, public infrastructure is nobody's business, and to cap it, our maintenance culture is zero. The reason we are backward as a country because we don't maintain the infrastructure that we have, which is one of the differences between rich and poor nations.
All right, Fonahami Idris. Enforcement of law and order is a major factor aside ignorance. A reckless driver will hit an electricity pole and his insurance company would not pay. Someone will remove the bridge handrail to make a spoon and nothing happens.
That's right. You can see that that's led to a change in construction of railings on bridges. It's now concrete rather than the aluminum that we used to have in the past. They're just taking them one after the other. This is coming from Abandon Jacob. The difference between maintenance economy and maintenance culture is understanding the application. A viable economy has a culture that sustains it. One cannot be substituted for the other, but once both are combined, the result will be impressive.
All right, from Danladi Ndayebo, the reason for the poor maintenance of public infrastructure is seen as belonging to everybody and to nobody. Such facilities are usually neglected a few months after commissioning. The contractors have got the money and government officials their kickbacks.
Chris Simeon tweets, Chris Simeon, that's on the next page, says some of our public infrastructure do not stand the test of time due to the poor attitude of those who are supposed to maintain them.
Now, Seidu Bello, the DG NOAA has captured my thoughts. We pay no attention to government properties that require less to repair. Our patriotism to this nation is lacking. May God save us.
Now, this is coming again from Abanda Jacob. I agree with Mr. Bola that infrastructure is both human and physical. True that when human infrastructure is underdeveloped, no matter the status of physical infrastructure put in place, it will be virtually useless. The unfolding of our human infrastructure is our bane. Kira, there's a point I would like College to clarify again, and this has to do with scheduled maintenance, corrective maintenance. The DG NOAA, considering his own orientation, that's to say his current job description, has talked about values and values and values. But can we reduce this into managerial capacities or lack thereof? Are we looking at management failure, supervisory failure? When it talks about leadership, if there is a supervisor in charge of the studio where we are, and the supervisor doesn't do his or her work, we'll have challenges. No doubt about that. So is it managerial failure or supervisory failure? And in particular, when we are looking at all of this, we have seen a change in recent years. Again, that's probably has to do with procurement. Janitors, that's to say cleaners, are being employed by public agencies to clean their offices, and you think that cleaning is important, very important, even though they don't do it well. They clean only in the morning. Sometimes even when you are entering the office, they are still cleaning. After that one, you go to the toilet. By 10 a.m., the toilet is stinking. But where are the real maintenance crews that you talked about earlier, where you see them with their bakkies, as they call them in South Africa, or with their pickup trucks? That's what they use them for, the ones that sometimes we use as status vehicles here in Nigeria. Collins.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. First of all, the fact that we do not recognize facility management as a profession in Nigeria, anybody can wake up tomorrow and call himself a facility manager. And when you hand over that responsibility to him, because he or she is not trained to do the job, he does it based on his instinct or how he thinks it should be done. Even though there are standard procedure for carrying out those responsibilities. And those who are expected to supervise his job don't even have a clue of what he's supposed to be doing. You talked about procurement. What do we find in Nigeria today? If an organization wants to engage a facility manager or a cleaning company, they don't have the requisite criteria to select the best qualified professional to handle that job. It's either he's related to me, or he's related to DG, or he's related to someone that is close to government. And you ignore those that are supposed to be qualified, or those that are competent, that have gone through the training to be able to implement those assignments properly and achieve value for money to that organization. So, and they come in and do it based on their abilities, which is next to zero because they don't have the required knowledge to implement these assignments. So basically, we must look at how we engage those that we hand over these responsibilities to, because there are set guidelines and standard procedure for engaging professionals.
Let me ask you this. Are you advocating the inclusion of facility management in our school curriculum?
Absolutely. We recently, in the 8th Assembly, tried to pass a bill to recognize facility management as a profession. It went through Senate to up to 3rd reading, but unfortunately the House of Reps could not concord. So that's why we don't have a law right now to establish facility management as a profession.
Has the pursuit been paused for now?
Yeah, for now. The 9th Assembly is just being constituted, but we hope to start all over again. But one of the things I would want to quickly mention to you is engineers, they build all the time, but they don't maintain. Architects, they design all the time, but they don't maintain. Facility managers maintain all the time. They are trained to maintain or manage the facility, but they don't design or build. But that profession does not exist in Nigeria as we speak.
Are facility managers professionals that could take care of those technology-driven infrastructure?
Absolutely. They are. It's just like in the medical world, the gynecologist make sure the woman, when pregnant, she's taken care of, and after delivery, then the pediatrics doctor take care of the baby going forward. So the engineers, architects, they put the buildings together and everything is set. They are trained to make sure that everything is followed in terms of construction and production. After which, the facility manager ensure that the building stays like that for the remainder of the life of that infrastructure. But unfortunately, the profession does not exist in Nigeria. So when we talk about maintaining the facility, people that are currently managing our facilities are not trained to be able to manage them. There is two ways, or there are two ways we are looking at maintenance today. We are looking at the users of the facility and those who are supposed to take care of the facilities, who are supposed to be the facility managers. Now, we are putting all the blame on the users that have less than 10% of what should make a building function the way it's been designed to function. Actually, if a facility manager is in charge of managing a public facility, his job is to ensure that the people that use that facility enjoy the use of that facility. But if it's not available, who takes care of that responsibility? It becomes an afterthought. Oh, we need to make sure that the generator is being maintained. Okay, you go and do it. And he has not been trained. So all he looks at is, oh, money is coming to do this job. So he doesn't understand why he should be doing some certain things at some certain times. So he rather diverts it to the one he thinks is more important for him.
What you're still referring to, Collins, in answering Kieran's question, is managerial.
Yes.
To say assignment of responsibilities and ensuring that there is monitoring and control.
Yes.
At the end of the day, the facility manager doesn't have to be an engineer,
no.
but he will recruit an engineer to fix an electrical problem,
yes.
or to fix a plumbing problem,
yes.
or to fix a structural problem.
Correct.
We're having a lot of infrastructure coming up now, and there must be concern, for instance, as to whether we'll have the right orientation to maintain our rail tracks, for instance, to maintain the roads, the highways that, you know, are being constructed all over the country,
yes.
And so on and so forth. I was just wondering, in terms of reorientation for all of this, Bola Bakari, before the DG Noah takes over, sometimes you have this, what some refer to it as showmanship. A governor or a local government chairman or some supervisor goes to a secretariat of the state or wherever at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and those workers who are not around, the gates are locked against them and they are said to lose their pay for that day. Might spot checks also help? I mean, I would be delighted, for instance, if, well, that's not necessarily his responsibility, just by way of an example. A big man goes, I say, I want to see your washroom.
Yes.
I want to see your washroom at 12 noon or at 1 p.m. And you find some of these diseases that you find all over the place just because all these toilets are poorly maintained. So, what might help in terms of reorientation of management? It's a managerial responsibility.
That's right, Kingsley. It brings us back to the element of human infrastructure.
Yeah.
It is highly important. And I still maintain the factor of leadership, followership, which you just said now, managerial against the underlings. But there are instances where even at the top, there is a deficit of human management. Let me cite you one instance because I've been keeping this to myself, but when a life is lost, I get very, very agitated. Factors of human role. And then